You're listening to Adventures in Project Management with John Goad.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode number 5 of Adventures in Project Management. So glad you're here with me today. I'm really excited to talk to you today about the topic that I have. And let's just dive right in. So today I'm going to talk about 4 leadership traps. 4 leadership traps. And I have really, really solid, close to home knowledge on these 4 leadership traps because I have actual experience with them. So let's talk. So these days, everybody's talking about leadership. I mean, there are classes, masterminds, videos, workshops. There's all kinds of resources to train yourself up or to listen to become a better leader. And that's good. I'm glad there's so much out there because we need good leaders, not just at work, in our jobs and our projects, what we do, our businesses, but at home and at school and with our friends. You know, leadership is something it's a lifelong pursuit, and it's so important, I think, to focus on it. The sooner you focus on it, I wish I had paid more attention to it when I was younger, but hey, hindsight's 20/20. But okay, so along those lines, there are a wonderful array of, thought leaders and examples through history. Simon Sinek, watched him on TED Talks so many times. He's so encouraging, and he's got some great just perspectives on leadership. And, there's the old Zig Ziglar and Stephen Covey, and those guys have been around a long time, but they have proven programs and tools that we can use to become better leaders. And throughout history, I think of Teddy Roosevelt. He's kind of one of my favorites, so you'll hear about him from time to time. And, Winston Churchill, another one during World War II. Great leaders throughout history who were, called to a certain time to step to the plate, if you will, and lead us as a nation or lead us as a people or lead, through certain times. And it's exciting and it's encouraging to read those stories and to study those people. So, and we could see, we see leadership examples in our everyday lives too with people that we know. I mean, I know lots of really good leaders, and I know some people that, maybe should practice up a little bit or, that's terrible. But wait, you may say, I'm not a leader. Well, au contraire. You are, my friend. You are a leader. We all find ourselves in a leadership role of some sort. I mentioned not just work or business, but at home and school and other places. We are there. There's always a place where someone is looking to us to lead through something else. Okay. Does that make sense? So with that, when I was a young manager, clawing my way up the ladder of success or whatever, so to speak, I thought that there were certain things that I had to do to become a good leader, or hopefully a great leader someday. I thought, okay, if I just do these things, then I'll be a good leader. So I started making lists and trying things to become a good leader. And, nobody showed me how to be a good leader in terms of sitting me down and saying, John, these are the things you have to do to be a good leader. I learned from people that I knew that were, my father and other men in my life and my mother and there were so many people that exhibited leadership at different times and in different ways. And I realized I just need to start paying attention to those things in my life. Well, then later on, I really wanted to become a student of it. And so, I ramped it up a little bit more. But as I continue on my leadership path, like I said earlier, it's a lifelong pursuit. It's like fly fishing. You don't just say, I'm going to learn fly fishing, I'm going to go do it, and then, after a year, I'm good. No, it's a lifelong pursuit. It's something that there's so many aspects to it and so much room for improvement. I talked about some of the, Simon Sinek and some of these guys. I don't think that they just have arrived. I think they're repeatedly continuing over and over to improve and to learn more and to know and to help others. And it's just a process. So look at it in that respect, that it's not just a thing. It's not a box you're going to check after a year or so. if you want to pursue it, it's going to be a lifelong pursuit, and that's a good thing. So let's get to the traps. All right. Trap number 1, I had to give them clever names. Trap number 1 is to be the winner. Yes, you heard me. If you're going to be a leader, to fall in a trap, you can aspire to be the winner all the time. What do I mean by that? Well, when I first started managing people, and I was kind of finding my way into what kind of leader I wanted to be, I decided that I needed to be loud. I needed to use my voice and my size and my presence and demand respect from my people. And this, however, was kind of a short-lived period in my leadership development training. But, pardon me, at the time, I thought that, this is the way I'm going to do it. I was managing multiple concurrent projects at this one period of time, and it was kind of high stress. There was a lot of stuff going on, and I thought, I'll just be loud. I will just be loud, and people will snap in line, and they will respect me. And guess what? That didn't work out so well. Now, granted, I was kind of new to the corporate world. This was kind of my first endeavor, or dive into a real kind of corporate setting. And so maybe I was a little bit on the defensive, with regard to that. But the bottom line is me wanting to be first, out front, be the winner, win every argument. That was so important to me, to prove that I was right. And winning arguments and being out front. Yeah, I was a bit of a crappy leader back then. But I was learning, okay? Number two, self-preservation is what I like to call this one. So yelling. Yelling has been a big portion of my industry, and not all coming from me, but there tends to be times when people yell. And at one point I was managing a large project. I'd been a deputy project manager, and I was, through attrition, I was elevated to senior project manager on a very large, as a government contractor. I was a contractor to the government on a capital line item project, meaning that Congress actually approved funding specifically for this project. And so with that, not only a lot of pressure and such but there was plenty of bureaucracy and layers of stuff to deal with as well. And so with that, there was a lot of yelling at certain briefings and whatnot, because everybody was pretty intent on doing the best job that they could. And so I don't think that's what caused the yelling. But anyway, it was a high stress, high pressure deal. And so it was almost 4 years that we worked on this project, and we came very close to meeting a milestone. Now, that's not something to brag about normally, but I can use it to illustrate, in this particular example. So, without naming names, to protect the innocent or the guilty, we had a milestone that we missed by a matter of hours. Okay, my project missed by a matter of hours. And there were incentive bonuses and things like that tied to that, not for me, not at my level, but at other levels beyond. And so apparently that kind of torqued off some upper management folks. They didn't like missing those incentive bonuses. So I was told that, back to some yelling that I mentioned before. So, we were scheduled to have a debrief, quote unquote, lessons learned meeting. And I'll never forget, we went to this one central place at this campus I was working at. And there was a table, probably, you could probably seat 30 people. It was like some movie, 30 people there. And I was somewhere on the side, at the table. I was at the table. But then you had the seats, and then behind, against the wall, there was another series of chairs wrapped all the way around the walls, maybe another 40 people. I mean, there were a lot of people in this meeting, and I don't remember even who led it, but there was representative from the stakeholders, which was the federal government. There were regulatory people there from the state level. There were engineers who had worked on this project, and there was military brass there, and then on and on. So my supervisor and his supervisor were there with me as well, sitting next to me. So I kind of knew that it wasn't going to be a super comfortable meeting. And excuse me, I did say that, we missed our milestone by a matter of hours. So the discussions began, and it didn't take long for me to kind of see how things were funneling down. I was feeling kind of small in the room. And so it got to the point where it was pretty clear that, John, you and your team messed up. And guess what? I owned it. I said, I know. I was totally responsible as the senior level project manager on this job that we missed our milestone by a few hours. And that wasn't the time to go into, remember the bureaucracy and the rules and regs and ever-changing complexity of the contracting and all these things that were contributing to our failure, essentially. But I owned it. I said, yeah, you're right. And that just kind of unleashed this craziness around the table, just pot shots from a lot of different people that I didn't even know that had, they were powerful people, but I think they just needed to, posture and do what they needed to do to make sure that I understood, where they were coming from with regard to my performance or lack thereof. So I'll never forget after the meeting, and my supervisor and his supervisor next to me just sat and didn't say a word. And afterwards, we walked out of the room, and I remember walking out into the parking lot feeling kind of numb after giving 4 years of my life to making this happen and kind of missing it. But then more importantly, just kind of feeling left alone that my supervisor and his guy didn't intervene or didn't even say anything at the time. And I think one of the guys, there were about 6 guys followed me out, and one of them patted me on the back and said, "Hey, John, no hard feelings there. It's just business, John. Come on. And it'll be all right, but see you on the next one." And, "Hey, here, have a cigar." One guy said, like, "No, I don't need a cigar right now. What I need is a different job." And so there was no next one. I actually left. But the lesson that I learned was that my boss and his boss were much more interested in self-preservation than they were team coherence or defending a teammate or even speaking into a situation to try to help give some clarity or something along those lines. I mean, these guys I'd been briefing them for years regularly, if not, my boss, if not daily, but then his boss at least once every couple of weeks. So they knew very well where the schedule is and what was happening and what the challenges were. But it was pretty clear I was left on my own. So self-preservation is not a leadership trait to attempt to emulate by any means. Because I don't know if these guys, I don't know where they went in their careers. I lost track. I broke off conversation with them. I didn't care. And I'll tell you what, I just wonder sometimes, how their careers progressed. If they kind of maintained that level of self-preservation and if that's how they were able to continue, or if some time it may have caught up with them. But for me personally, I don't want to try it. I don't want to have my self-preservation go before defending or protecting or speaking into situations where I can add clarity or I can add information that might help. That's just something I don't want to practice. So I did experience that one. That was not fun. Number three of leadership traps. This one I like to call work. Work. So when I was younger, I thought this would be the leadership trait that I wanted to be defined by. If I just worked all the time, if I worked the hardest and the longest, that somehow I'd be able to, have I don't know, have people just follow me because I was such a hard worker. My father was one of the hardest working guys there is that I know. And I always wanted to work harder than him. It's kind of a thing. And, when I was in the field as a carpenter and other, roles, I saw it manifest a lot where, there was always a race to who was going to show up on the job site first and who's going to stay the latest and this and that. But honestly, it wasn't the leadership trait that I needed to be pursuing to be a good leader. And it took me a little while to figure that out. I still to this day, I have friends and family and others that still kind of boast about long hours. And, I am not opposed to hard work. Trust me. I love working hard. There's nothing that I feel better that when I work hard. I mean, that's just how it is, right? But I also found that I have to work smart. And if you couple those two together, then you can be a leader that's worthy of following. People will follow someone who works hard and smart. They may follow you to work hard too, but then it just becomes a competition. And it kind of moves away from the whole purpose of what you're trying to lead if it just turns into a competition on who stays the latest or does the most or lifts the highest or whatever. And this can happen in the office too. It's not just in the field. So people will follow someone who works hard and smart. So go ahead and work hard, but don't work. Okay. Oh, now the fourth one. This is number 4, trap number 4. This one caught me by surprise when it finally clicked, and it took a while, just because of my nature. I like to get along with everybody, kind of a thing. But I call trap number 4, everybody's buddy. Everybody's buddy. So when I was a young carpenter, I was a carpenter, and then we would have a foreman, and then a superintendent and project manager, on up the food chain or whatever. And the foreman was, he was working with us in the field. And I always wondered why our foreman, and definitely never the superintendent, but why the foreman wouldn't go have lunch with us offsite or go have a beer with us after work sometimes. Just wouldn't do it. Would never happen. And I don't remember if I asked around at that time or not, but I recall it was just kind of something that bothered me a little bit. And later when I got into the office, I remember working for a construction company, and I asked the owner of the company, Mike, I said, "Hey, Mike, you never go out with us." And we didn't go out a lot. It wasn't like we were always hanging out, after work, but occasionally, maybe a couple times a quarter or whatever, we'd go out and have a beer, or we'd go out and have dinner or something like that as a team. And this owner of this little company, would never join us. And I said, well, why not? What do we, what's the deal? Why won't you go socialize with us? And he looked me straight in the eye and said, "John, I'll never socialize with you." He said, and it kind of caught me off guard. He said, "I'll never socialize with you because I may have to fire you the next day." Well, I thought that was kind of stupid, because I thought, really, you're that shallow or whatever. But as I reflected more, and I didn't agree, and I don't agree with how he came across, how he presented that. He was a very direct guy, and that's just kind of how he communicated. But the point was kind of taken after I kind of had to, digest that for a while. But now I know that there are limits limits to your involvement with your team. But I'll tell you, some of the most, successful times of my leadership and things that I'm most proud of is when I know when I know enough about my team to be able to help them and work with them at an individual level. And sometimes it gets personal because it does, because I care about people. I mean, that's why I'm in business. That's why I do what I do, is because I care about people. So why wouldn't I care about members of my team? Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think that, running out and having a beer after work once in a while is going to doom your efforts as a leader by any means. But I'm just saying, keep it professional, and don't fall into a trap where we're trying to be everybody's buddy can certainly impair your ability to lead. It can. You can just be distracted by other things, or you get into such personal stuff that it can start to impact your decisions and thus impact your leadership. So don't try to be everybody's buddy. So those are the 4 traps that I've experienced with leadership, and there's others, but I just wanted to keep this, relatively short. So I'm asked, John, what makes you successful? What would make somebody successful with leadership? How can you work with a team and be successful? And a lot of times people want to talk about the mechanics or the technical aspects, and there are certainly practices and things along those lines that will make you a successful leader or help you become a successful leader. But I want to focus on that today. I want to focus on something that has been tried and true with me. Is something that I've learned in watching others that I wanted to mimic their behavior. I wanted to emulate or whatnot. And that is servant leadership. It's practicing servant leadership with my team and frankly with my clients as well. But what does that mean? So let me stress that when you practice servant leadership, it is at the individual level, meaning you have a team made up of individuals, and you serve each one of those individuals in order to serve your team. Now, it may sound like a lot of time, and I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about making everybody lunch separately or anything like that. But there are specific things that you can do that will help your team become more efficient and gel and work together well by thinking about the individual. And so here's 3 things that I do to help in my servant leadership. Number 1 is to empower. That means empower the team members to do their job, to give them the resources and the blessing, the ability to go ahead and do their job. That sounds kind of funny, but some leaders don't like to do that. Some leaders like to kind of hold the reins in a lot. But I think if somebody's a professional and they have a job and they have the skills and the ability and the resources to do it, then why not let them do their job? And you have to make sure that they're aligned. Those responsibilities are aligned with their skill set and whatnot. But it's important to empower your people. Certainly give them deadlines and, keep them accountable and things like that. It takes trust. Trust is huge throughout this whole servant leadership thing. It's so important for leadership to trust. Okay, number 2 is to listen to your people. Once they're empowered, then you need to listen to your team. And what I mean by that, so this goes with a large dose of trust as well, because, and I'm not talking about just listen to people gripe. That might be a part of it, but your people may have something really good to add to your perspective, which may help you nudge your leadership a little bit, or may help you consider something that you hadn't thought of. And that's just kind of how it is. You may prioritize the team's work, but if you listen to your people and they say, if we took this and moved it here, it may flow better. That's important. That doesn't challenge you as a leader. That doesn't compromise you as a leader. What that does is that should empower you to become even better by listening to your people and implementing some of what they have to say. One, it creates ownership. They're going to feel like they own a part of this thing and they're vested in the effort. That's the truth. And second, it's just going to help you make better decisions and help you lead better. It's true. Number 3, under how to servant leadership is support. Provide support. So now that you've empowered them and you're listening to them and you trust them at both of those phases, you also have to support your team. And what I mean by that, you have to blow up roadblocks sometimes. Okay. You have to have hard conversations. You may have to defend team members or your team as a whole. It's hard to say. There's lots of examples, but all of this will allow them to do their jobs better. If you know that you're going to, if you know that your leader, your boss, your project manager is going to stand up for you when you're performing your job, or is going to defend you, you're going to move past, why wouldn't you feel more confident and comfortable in doing your work? It's just how that's going to work. Now, that could mean jumping on a call to run interference for somebody who's having a hard time, maybe with a vendor or a client or something like that. Or it could be just taking an action item off somebody's plate that's just struggling because they have too much and they've bit off more than they can chew, or maybe they're having a specific struggle with something. You can just help offload a little bit of that. It doesn't have to be big major things to support your team or the individuals on your team. I always like to say it's, a little of that goes a long way. Well, it's true. A little bit of that can go a long way to making your team successful. So these three things can help you through servant leadership to just have successful teams. Now, as a leader, and certainly as project managers, we're going to say, what about control? I mean, come on. I have to control the project. I have to control the product. I have to control the situation. It's all about control. Well, sure it is. But listen to this. If you aspire to control your team as a leader, that's something that is not worthy of your aspiration at all. Why would you say? Because once you start to control at the team or the individual, you're going to take away some of the autonomy and some of the benefit of that team working within the zone of their expertise and their skill sets. You're going to inhibit that. You're going to hinder that. And you've got to trust people, empower them, listen to them, support them. Okay. So don't worry about controlling them. You guide them. You set objectives to meet. You set goals. You set a schedule, right? And that allows everybody to work together to that objective. You keep them accountable for sure, but that doesn't mean controlling everything. Second is, along with that, then it becomes, well, who gets the credit? I'm going to do all this work and do all these things, and I got to get the credit. Again, if you go into your leadership role wanting to seek credit, if that's all you want to do, then you shouldn't be a leader. That's not the objective. And guess what? If you support your team through servant leadership, if you truly work with your team, if you are a part of that team in a way that benefits the team as a whole to get the thing done, guess who's going to get the credit? The team will get the credit, and it's not hard for people to see who the leader of that team is. So don't make getting credit your objective. That's a false objective. You shouldn't worry about that. So I'm going to give everybody homework today. So take this challenge. No matter what your team, I don't care if your team is, if you're on a sports team, if you are on a team in your business, a small mom and pop shop or a larger firm, or if you have a project team or a product you're developing, take this challenge and really try servant leadership. Try to empower your people, give them the responsibilities and the accountability, and find that balance so that they can work well. And you have to trust them with that. Okay. And listen to your people, listen to your team, listen to the individuals, and keep it professional, but listen to them and don't get proud if they have a better idea than you had as their leader. I'll tell you what, a good leader takes the good ideas and he implements them, he or she implement them, and that makes the team successful. That makes the thing successful. If you just get all bent out of shape because it wasn't your idea, then you've got a problem. So listen to your people. And last and very importantly, support your people. Support your team. Support the individuals, which makes the team feel supported so that they can do their work and you can achieve the objective. That's the truth. So thanks for joining me today. And I hope that you've heard something here today that can be helpful to you. And if not, pass it on to somebody else. I hope that I can help somebody else. But my desire is to take the things that I've learned and the experiences that I've had and try to package these things up and just put it out there so that I can be help to others. That's truly my heart's desire. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. That really helps me spread the word and helps me reach more people so I can get my message out to do the thing that I want to do, and that's just helping out. So take care. It's great to see you or speak with you or to you. And until next time on Adventures in Project Management, I'm John. Take care. We'll see you.